The reason they like reading my stuff is that I've always got real life examples to prove what I'm saying.
There's a lot of good people that listen to this podcast.
Other than God and my family, deer hunting would be next in line on my list of priorities.
From the bottom of our hearts, it's just fantastic and awesome to have the support that you guys are getting.
People ask me about expandable broadheads and love swings.
Chasing Giants with Don Higgins and Terry Peer. Brought to you by Osseo Camo, nature's most lethal camouflage. Follow along as Don and Terry discuss the techniques, strategies, and dedication needed to harvest one of God's most amazing creations, world-class whitetails.
Well, welcome everyone to the Chasing Giants podcast, episode 184, and Don and I are recording earlier in the week this week, so it has not been too many days since we were last with you, but we're doing this strategically so Grandpa can go and be around family as he's expecting his third grandchild here at the end of the week. So early congratulations to you, boss.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we're looking forward to this baby coming soon, and just appreciate everyone's prayers. I know there's been several messages sent to me, and folks said that they were praying for an easy delivery and healthy baby, and definitely appreciate those.
Yeah, absolutely. So we teed this episode up last week. We're going to have Paul from PH Outdoors, who is actually the original designer of the drill that Don and I have talked about for many years, that Wildlife Farming actually sponsors the podcast and sells this Genesis drill. Well, Paul has left that company and started PH Outdoors and taken that drill over with a bunch of improvements. And, there's a lot of rumors and different things going around about what happened, although he's going to be a little tight-lipped about what transpired. He started the new company, has the rights to the brand, and is diving into making this drill even better. So we wanted him to come on the show and go for that. Great guy. Just so happy to have him on the podcast to explain it firsthand. But so we're going to leave a lot of time in this episode for that, because especially the people watching on YouTube are going to get to see different pictures and improvements of the drill. But Don, we're going to also try to get a couple more questions answered than we normally do today. But before we move on to that, why don't you tee up the speaking engagement at your church that you mentioned last week, because I think you're getting a whole lot of questions from people, and hopefully this will knock it out.
Yeah, so on September 15th, my home church, which is Solid Rock Chapel in Sullivan, Illinois, is hosting a men's retreat event. So this is a men's only event. They go out and they camp for the weekend, at least Friday and Saturday, still make church on Sunday. On Friday evenings, they usually have a meal. This year it's going to be a ribeye meal. And then they have a speaker. Well, this year I was asked to be the speaker, and definitely was happy to accept that invitation. So September 15th, it's going to be held at the Whitley Creek Recreation Area on Lake Shelbyville, right at the entrance to there. You won't be able to miss it. There'll be a lot of trucks and stuff there along the road. You'll see it. The ribeye meal is $30. That also includes breakfast the next morning. So anybody that wants to come and camp, you're welcome to. Bring lawn chairs to the event. If you want to make a weekend out of it, there's great fishing on Lake Shelbyville. I think it's a big lake, like 11,000 acre lake. There's different campgrounds around the lake. You're more than welcome to come to church with me on Sunday morning. I'm going to stand outside. I'm going to get there a little bit early and stand outside to greet anyone that's visiting, and just be glad to have you there. But if you're interested in attending this event, I know that they told me they've already got people coming from as far away as Pennsylvania and Alabama, as well as a lot of the surrounding states that touch Illinois. So, Terry, can you throw that slide back up so I can give the phone numbers? If you're interested in attending that event, you can call Curtis at 217-254-1409 or Mike at 217-620-8255. 8806, and we'd be glad to have you. I'm going to be sharing some things at when I do my talk that I've never shared before. You're going to get to know things about me that maybe you wish you didn't know before it's over, but I'm going to kind of share my journey to where I am today in the hunting industry and that. So look forward to seeing some of you folks there.
Well, I know that you probably don't know this yet, Don, but the attraction for them asking you to be the speaker is you would try to get most of the outdoors men and women out in to listen to your spiel. But I actually heard that Solid Rock Chapel was trying to also target females to come too. So Al Foster has a kissing booth in the back that they said that he agreed to just to try to appeal to the lady folks. So if you want to come here, Don, or you want to give smoochies to Al Foster, I think he signed up for that. I'm not sure though.
Well, it's kind of funny that now Al's a real Romeo. There's no doubt about it. and the fact that he would have a kissing booth at a men's only event, it has me kind of scratching my head, Terry. But yeah, Al Foster will be there.
I'm not saying that it's there for the men. I'm saying that the lady folk can come now because Al will have his booth set up in the back. So I'm going to get a text message after that one. You watch.
There may be some entertainment there that I don't know about.
All right. Well, I'm not going to go into a bunch of details, but remember that the event, the 5th Annual Hunters Bash in Napanee, Indiana, is September 12th. You need to RSVP by September 1st. To do that, call 574-209-2065. I think they're expecting another big crowd, lots of auction items and raffle prizes, and good food in Napanee, Indiana. The number is 574-209-2065.
Osseo Gear has perfected one of the most innovative camo patterns on the market. The unique camo pattern designed to mimic the feather patterns of one of North America's greatest predators, the great horned owl. Combined with intuitive features, superior comfort, and ultra high quality fabrics give bow hunters the ultimate advantage. Osseo has outfitted over 10,000 bow hunters across the country with over 1,000 5-star reviews. Visit asiogear.com to check it out for yourself. Use code CHASINGGIANTS for 15% off.
Well, hey everyone, I want to introduce you to Paul Hollis. He's with PH Outdoors, who produces the G Series drill, which I've been using on my farm for 3 years now. It's been vital in my my food plot program and has saved me a lot of time, but it's just so efficient in so many ways. And Paul, welcome to Chasing Giants.
Thanks, Don. Appreciate it. I'm excited to be here and appreciate everything that you do. And I follow along with everything you do and fascinated by a lot of what you do that's different than other people in the market.
Well, I got to say something real quick, Paul. At least this show is a little bit cooler than you being down in Louisiana with the Robertsons earlier this month. I saw on social media that you were down there sweating a little bit with the guys from Duck Commander.
Hey, man, it was freaking hot. It was 105 that day and like 90% humidity. And, they wanted, Willie bought a drill, so they wanted us to take it to their farm manager. And I literally said, you got to put it in the shop. I can't take this heat. So they put it in there and they put these big fans on us and it kept blowing. But when you'd walk away from the fan, you would just start dripping with sweat. And finally they said, hey, you guys want to go over to Phil and Kay's and get some lunch and sit in the AC? I said, yeah. Once they got me there, I didn't want to leave. I'd never seen heat like that.
Pretty cool experience though, I bet.
It was awesome. Yeah, really cool.
Well, I want to tee up this conversation. We told everybody last week that you were going to be on the show this week to talk about PH Outdoors and the new G Series. Walk us through a little bit about the G Series. It's a brand new brand that's out. As the designer of this drill from its origin, the food plotting industry has been extremely passionate or you've been extremely passionate about the outdoor industry, I should say. walk us through a little bit about this new drill, why it's out there, what's going on, and we'll obviously tee up our partners from Wildlife Farming here in a little bit, who is the distributor for these. That's a sponsor of the show. But I want to start with this new brand.
Yeah, it's exciting for us. PH Outdoors obviously stands for my name, but I started with the old company nearly 30 years ago, and was the driving force behind the old products, the old machines. And we just got to the point with the old company where they weren't interested in building them anymore. So I basically took the ball and ran with it, and came out with a new brand, really to kind of separate ourselves from them. Our machines are similar. I won't say they're the same, but they're a similar platform. And the reason we did that is because we wanted to be able to support the old machines. So most of the parts from our machines will fit the old machines. If not, we have kits that will make the parts work, because we want to support those old users. But really, it was something they wanted to drop, so we took the ball and decided to run with it.
Fantastic. That's a very vital part of one of the questions I wanted to ask you. Somebody invests a lot of money in these machines and don't want to lose support or parts, so you're going to be able to handle that. Don, you've been using this for 3 years now. Before we dive into the drill itself, talk a little bit about how vital of a role this thing's played on your farm.
Well, the first thing that jumps out at me is a time saver. I'm one of those guys that's slow to embrace technology. I've just always been that. I'm old school in everything I do. So I was out there with an old disc, a 10, 12-foot disc that was probably 50 years old. I'd disc the ground, and I would put a harrow on the tractor to level the ground. And then I would have to put on a planter. I had 2 different planters, one for soybeans only, and then I had a corn planter, and then a lot of stuff I would just broadcast onto that to work soil. Then I'd have to come back and either drag it or roll it in, and there was just a lot of steps in the process. And the thing that really struck me was that every time you work that soil, you're churning up new weed seeds, and you get a lot of weed growth every time you work that soil. And the drill just saved all of those steps. I would basically spray my plot to kill the weeds, and I would no-till right on top of that. And that spraying was part of the original process as well, but then I eliminated everything between the spraying and the planting. And I even went so far as to custom design a sprayer that attached to the front of my tractor where the bucket would go. Mm-hmm. And it had a wiring harness that went back to my cab, and I had it hooked up to a toggle switch. I could flip the sprayer off and on, and I was spraying and planting in one pass. And that was just absolutely a huge time saver. But from the weed standpoint as well, it really cut down on the weed pressure in my plots. And as I'm working more towards soil health and things, it's just a perfect fit. So
last episode we were talking about, I'm in a predicament here in Kentucky with the heat index being what it is, and had to delay planting my food plot because I didn't want to open up that soil. And I talked to a couple people on the phone this week. If you were using a drill like this one, you wouldn't have to necessarily worry about that as much because you're not disrupting it. You can go ahead and get that seed in at the right depth, and then just wait for your moisture to come versus, tilling and managing all that. So I think there's just so many benefits. And Paul and Don, you both comment on this. The versatility of the product is also, I think, one of the things that doesn't get talked about a lot, because, with the small seed box option that we're going to talk about here in a little bit, you can go from everything to brassicas and clovers all the way up to winter peas and cereal grains. Especially with the diversity that we want to get into the products. It can cover a full gamut.
Yeah. And Don, you say you're old school, but man, I see you pushing the envelope with a lot of things. I don't know what that stuff is you do the screening with and different things. And I see you with different seeds out there, man, you're leading the way when it comes to trying new things, and I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I'm always trying to have the very best habitat I can possibly have on my farm, and that just requires never-ending testing. If there's something better out there, I want to be planting it. I don't want second best on my own farm. I want the very best for my deer herd. And Paul, before we get too far into that, one thing that I'd like to really jump on is a rumor that I heard that these drills are now being made in China. And talking to you off air, I know that's not true. And I'd just like for you to kind of reassure the people that a lot of the rumors they've heard are absolutely not true, and these drills are not being made in China.
Yeah, absolutely not true. There are some rumors. I suspect where the rumors are coming from, but I can guarantee you there's nothing coming from China. We didn't copy anything, and we've moved some of our production to here in the States. We're doing in Ohio. Some of it's made in Europe and shipped over. But, we want to make that clear. There's nothing being built in China, and we want to move as much manufacturing as we can to America so that we're dealing in dollars. We're not worrying about exchange rates and shipping and things like that.
Well, I can tell you the new version is every bit as good as the old and better. There's been a lot of improvements that you've implemented in this new design, the G series drills that you're calling them. Could you go through some of those with us?
Yeah, absolutely. We had an opportunity. We wanted to look at the original platform and say, okay, that was a good machine. We had good luck with it, but what changes can we make? And looking at that picture right now, one of the things that you'll notice is that seed hopper a lot taller. It's not a lot narrow, but it's narrow and it's tall. Reason people had problems with bridging in the past. So, that helps the seed drop, gets to those seed elements so that, you're getting better, dispersion.
So Paul, what you're saying there is the seed box isn't as wide, it's taller, so we're letting gravity push that seed down versus getting hung up in a more of a flat shelf inside of the box then.
Exactly, yeah.
So staying evenly spread across all of the openings in the bottom.
Yep. And you had asked earlier about the dividers that we have. People have been just bugging the heck out of me about getting those dividers for their old drills. And I tell them those dividers won't fit. And the reason is the hoppers aren't the same. Ours is much taller so that the seed will drop better. And you've got the picture of the hopper dividers up now. We've had a lot of call in the past for people who want to put different varieties. They want to have 2 rows of corn and 2 rows of beans or different things. Or some people want to plant on the outside and not plant in the middle because they're trying to create a path for them to walk down. There's a lot of different things that you could do with these. They're also very, very helpful too if you've been planting, and Don, you probably had this happen, but you're out there planting corn or beans, and as you start getting lower, the seed will shift to one side. Why that does that, I don't know, and it's never to the left or the right. It depends on which way your land lays, but that always shift to one side where you've got, half the elements on one side are still planting, but the other side of the machine's empty. This will help that seed from not shifting all over the place.
That's a fantastic idea, and my mind's just sitting here spinning with the possibilities that this affords the user. You could there's a lot of guys that like to plant soybeans and corn together, and instead of just stirring that seed up and having it in the same row, you could have your corn on, say, your outer 2 rows, and then in the middle you could have your soybeans or grain sorghum or just a lot of different things.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, talk about the toe kit. I know one of the things that's kind of your claim to fame, but your strength is sometimes your weakness. Your machine is built so heavy that people sometimes don't appreciate how heavy it is and how big of a tractor they need for the different sizes. But you have a tow kit that's available, and I think this helps alleviate some of the weight distribution on the 3-point hitch.
Yeah, the machines were originally designed to be 3-point. That's one of the ways we wanted to separate ourselves. When we started looking at building the old machines and we looked at the market, you had the high-end ag drills, and then you had the cheap machines, and everybody knows who both are, but didn't see anything in the middle. And that's what we wanted to do, is find that niche to where we were in the middle. And we started building the machines. And one of the things we wanted to do, because we looked at the way people were planting, and a lot of food plotters, they plant small plots, and they get in and, you got a big ag drill and you're trying to get it done in good time, but you're making these big, turns where you almost need a driving range, or you need a airport runway or something to turn these things around. So, but with that said, the drills have to be heavy to plant. That's the nature of a no-till drill. And some people want to be able to use a bigger drill on a smaller tractor, and the only way you can do that is have the tow kit. So we do have them available for all of the machines. The machine that sells or people buy the tow kit for the most is the small 3 series, because they'll use that with a side-by-side.
Gotcha. Talk about these new front cutters that you've released and what the application for with that, because I could see a bunch of our switchgrass users loving this.
Yeah, we put a lot of effort into these new front cutters, made them to where they're stronger, went to a shorter disc or smaller diameter disc because we thought that they would cut better. The spring is stronger. But, the application is where, you've got tough soils, or you're cutting through standing vegetation, because they're like pre-opening cutters, if you will. Some people will say that because we don't use these all the time, we're not really a drill, but that's not true. No-till means you're not turning the soil. So, with these front cutters, though, a lot of people don't know. They watch, ag drills that have pre-cutters on there, and they think automatically they have to have these. What we tell people is, look, you try the drill without it. You can add them later. They're simple to add, but still probably 60% of the machines we sell, people buy these with them.
Yeah. So Don, this would be a little bit more for people wanting to plant in trashy conditions. So it would be like something beans after corn without any tillage. Or the other thing that I was thinking about is, even though we've gotten away from doing frost seeding of switchgrass, when we have frozen ground, just helping open up that frozen ground during the late winter months, this would be probably something that people would use for that type of application, right?
Yeah, and that, speaking of switchgrass, that leads to a topic. I've planted switchgrass with my drill without the small seed box, just using the regular seed box. Switchgrass seed is probably the smallest seed that anyone's ever going to plant, just real tiny. And I'll tell you, I had absolutely fantastic results without the small seed box. And I mean, I got the best end of switchgrass ever. As far as the seeding rate goes, the germination and everything, just using the regular seed box. So, Paul, could you go into a little bit of the application for that small seed box? I know it's an add-on, that doesn't come unless you special order it. But what was the reasoning behind adding that small seed box?
Yeah, it's funny that you asked that, because I probably get more questions about that than I do anything with the drill. With the standard machine, that standard box, you can plant anything from corn to clover, is what we've always said. And it does well with the blends, but in some applications, people want to plant seed at 2 different depths. So they could plant, a bean or whatever, in the standard box, at 1.5 inch deep, 1.5 inch deep, and then be shallow with a small seed box. So that's really what the design of that was intended for. I don't know that we see that as much in the food plot market, but in pasture renovation and things like that, you see a lot of that. The people do that. Some people have the wrong impression, though. They think a small seed box is for native seeds, and it's definitely not for native seeds. We're working on a native seed box and should have that by spring. But yeah, the small seed box is really intended for people that want to plant with 2 different depths.
And as I after I asked the question, you started answering, it just hit me that would be a perfect tool for planting our deadly dozen. You could put the plot topper in that small seed box and put the harvest salad in the big seed box, and that would be ideal, because what I'm doing now to keep that the small seed in our plot topper, which is like turnips and radish and such, if you would mix that all together in the big seed box, it has a tendency to separate, and then you get all that small seed coming out at one part of your plot. So I'm going out and broadcasting the plot topper, and then I'm running the drill with the harvest salad right over the top to get the harvest salad down in the soil, and it's working out great. But now that I look at this, I'm thinking I need to trade my drill in and get me one with a small seed box on it.
I'm sure.
That would save me another step.
I'm sure the guys at Wildlife Farming would be happy to help you with that.
Yeah.
Well, so to wrap up kind of the scope of the product, and we wanted to establish what the new brand was. Obviously, we want to talk about the features and upgrades that you've changed, but I also want to give the scope of the different sizes that we offer through Wildlife Farming on the new G series. So walk us through the 4 different options that are there. It's kind of simple how you've labeled everything in the brand, but just for the people listening, go ahead and just kind of give a scope of the different models.
Yeah, we're really we're building 4 different models: the G3, G5, G8, G10. The number, the 3, 5, 8, 10 signify the width, the planting width. There is no heavy and light versions. All of the new models have weight bars or weight kits to where you can add weight if you feel like you need additional weight for that cutting power. And through a lot of experimentation, what we found is, in trying different disc and all kinds of different things, really weight is what creates cutting power. So if you're planting in really hard soil, or if you're planting green, as some people call it, where you're planting into heavy vegetation, that extra weight will help you. We have proprietary weights that we like people to buy to hang on there, but in really most any suitcase weight will fit on there. A couple other things that are kind of important to point out on the machine, and I don't know that you have the photos there, but the D shackles, we changed the D shackles. Some people had problems on the old machines. The D shackles would, because people go too fast on rough terrains, that D shackle carries the weight of the element strip or the disc hanger. And what happens is that thing bounces up and down, and it would pull the bolt out or bend the bolt, and then that D shackle would fall out. We put a much heavier D shackle on it, and we put a bolt-end nut through there, so you really have a hard time getting those out. But the key thing with is we move that position of the D shackle back. So if you need to change one, yeah, you can do it in minutes. You're not having to take that machine all apart. The D shackle's not placed between the disc anymore, so you're not worried about cutting your hand or having to take the disc off. We had, in the past with the old company, we had people getting so mad with us over a $2 part. So we did change that. And that element strip that carries the disc and the packing wheels, a lot of people will break those because they're trying to make hard turns in the ground. And you put 8 disc or 13 disc in the ground and you try to make a 90-degree turn, you're going to break something. There's a lot of torque there. The tractor's not going to break, so it's usually something on the drill, and it's usually that element strip. And people try to tell us they don't make the turns, but you can look at them and you can see where the things are twisted. But in the past, the element strip, you had to beat out a rod that held all of them together, and usually it's the middle one that breaks. Murphy's Law. It's that middle one that breaks, so you're dropping all of them. You're driving that rod out. So we've changed it to where now they bolt on. So you break the one in the middle, you break the one outside. It's 2 bolts, they drop down, and you can change it. We don't like that people break them, but if you turn in the ground, you're putting a lot of torque on that machine, something's going to give. So at least we made it easier for them. And then on the internal part of the seed hopper, we changed the plastic elements. They used to be black, and if you're planting brassicas, you're planting clover, you're planting something, you got a dark seed, and you got, right there's a picture. If that's dark in there, you can't tell if there's seed in there. So we changed it to where they're white now, so you can tell which one of them has seed and which ones don't. Minor things, but that's what we try to do, is make minor changes. We changed the drive wheel, the old rubber wheel. Some people felt would slip in certain conditions, so we think this will give you better traction. Especially if there's vegetation still left on the ground. There's the element strips we're talking about. Used to be a rod that drove through where all those nuts are right there, drove through all of them. Now you can just take those two nuts off and drop them and change them. So we looked at everything on the old machines and said, where can we make them better? And that's, we probably got a dozen different changes that we made.
Well, like I said when we started, changing a brand, establishing or modifying a brand is always exciting to me. That's actually how Don and I first met, is when Real World was transitioning from the old company to the new one. And I can tell you that it doesn't matter kind of what your vision for things is. It always seems like God always has a bigger plan when you put him first and associate with the right people and get the right team on your court. And I can tell by how you work throughout the outdoor community, how you support the outdoor community. It's obviously a big target market for you, but I think with the passion that you have for this specific to hunters, it always amazes me, all the businesses that try to dabble in the outdoor industry because they think all the margin is there. But I think the successful companies are like you and Don, who are just deer hunters that want to make deer hunting products specific for deer hunting, not agriculture, not, turf management, which was, I think, originally way back in the day where your background was from. But when a company sets out to do just simply deer hunting solutions, you guys and Joe Miles are the perfect example of it. You're not trying to just milk the industry for margin. You're really trying to provide solutions. Don and I have seen this firsthand with Real World Wildlife Products. You get the right people in your court, God's plan's going to always be a whole lot bigger than what you could ever imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's funny because that is where our passion is. And we use the machines. We don't just build them and sell them. We use the machines. We're out there, I'll be out there later today planting. But when we first got into this market, it was because a young man that worked for me named Michael Moyer came to me and said, let's take one of the turf drills and let's make a food plot planter out of it. I'm like, oh man, that's brilliant. Let's do that. And that's kind of how we got the ball rolling, because we were looking to find a planter for our own farms. It wasn't about selling them, and then it morphed into that. But that's where our passion is. And you mentioned the other markets. If we really wanted to make money and go after numbers, we'd be trying to go after the ag business. We don't. We still sell some in ag and vineyards and different things, but that's because those people find us because they see our drills out there planting food plots, and they're like, oh, will that work on my farm, or will that work in my vineyard, or these kind of things. But yeah, that's where our passion is, and that's all the new machines and everything that we develop will be geared to that market, because that's what we love.
Well, I think actually, Paul, you've kind of brought the best of both worlds together, because, typically when a product is made just for food plotters, the quality is not quite there. It's not quite as heavy duty as what the ag industry would demand. But this drill, I can tell you, the steel in this drill, I mean, we're talking some heavy, thick steel that would stand up against any ag drill out there. So, kind of very similar to what Real World has done. You've taken a deer hunter, land manager approach, but you've also used the best technology, if you will, or the best things out of the ag industry and brought that to your drill. And that basically is how well the drill is made, and how well it's going to stand up to everyday use.
No, I appreciate you saying that. We take a lot of pride in that, and I when we go to shows, people tell us how much they love the drill and how much it's, that's one of the things I love about this industry. When you walk into a show, all the people that come and want to show you pictures on their phone, look at my food plots, look at what I've been planting, look at the deer. And it's like, yeah, I can. You don't have to pay me to do that. I'll stand there and do that all day. And it's nice because we can hold our head up and feel like we make a quality product.
Well, I remember the first time you was at the ATA show with this drill, and it was drawing quite a bit of buzz, and I never even walked over to look at it because I just kind of brushed it off as another, cheap food plot implement, cheaply built food plot implement. And it was not until sometime later, when I don't even remember where I really took the first good look at that drill, and I'm seeing that 1/2-inch thick plate steel on the ends of the frame, and that solid tubular steel. And actually on the heavy duty model, it was a solid piece of steel. I recognize that this was not just your typical food plot implement. It was built for the ag industry, if you will, as far as the design and the engineering behind it. So I think you did a fantastic job, and you filled a niche that wasn't there, because before a person had two choices. He can buy the cheap food plot implement, or he could buy the well-built ag equipment, and there was nothing in between. I think you've done a good job merging those two.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That first ATA we did was either 2014 or 2015, and we went in there thinking, is this going to take off? We had no idea. And the buzz we got from that show, the people that came in the show, I'm like, gosh, I watch these people on TV. These are my heroes. I've been watching some of these people since I was kids, and it was just one person after another. And it just, we left that show thinking, man, maybe we have something here. And I'm really, really happy. You say God has a plan, but I believe that's where God wants me to be. And it's just, everything's just fell into place.
Well, let's finish up the conversation talking about where people can get these, who can answer questions for them, and how Wildlife Farming, who has been a partner of the show now for, I believe this is going on the 2nd or 3rd year, Don. Let's talk about all of that and where people need to go to get more information from Paul or from Wildlife Farming. You can both comment on it.
Well, if you go to our website or to our social media, our website's ph-outdoors.com. There's an email there, and generally I will answer anyone's questions. I want to personally, greet people and to answer their questions. I can't say I do all of them, but I try to. If they reach out to me there, I can answer any of their questions, whether it's what we're doing, why we're doing it, what questions about the drill, where can they get them, that sort of thing. And when it comes to where can they get them, we've got a great distribution network, great dealer network. Brad and Mark at Wildlife Farming are great partners of ours, and I know you guys work with them, but I've known Brad and Mark probably since the 1990s, for a long, long time. I can't believe how old they are. They're great partners. They do a lot. They do a lot to help me personally, as well as help the company, and can't be more pleased than the the distributors we have out there working with us.
Yeah, so you can go to wildlifefarming.com if you're interested in purchasing one. Contact Paul directly through his website if you have questions. I'm also a dealer for them. I'll just throw that out. I've sold 3 here in probably the last week, probably about a week. Anyway, I got 3 invoices sitting on my desk here that I need to get paid. Brad might be giving me a call, but I can answer some questions too, but I don't have the new drill on hand, but I will shortly. So anyway, we are definitely glad to have Wildlife Farming on board as a sponsor, and definitely enjoy using your drills in our food plots. I just used mine yesterday, and talk about a time saver and getting the job done right. That's the most important thing. Is you go out there and you don't have the right equipment, it's hard to get a good stand of whatever you're planting in your plots, but I've never had a failure with the drill.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate those kind words, and we appreciate everything you do.
Well, thank you.
Well, Paul, thanks for being on the show. We'll circle back. All of your contact information, websites, everything else will be in the description below. Paul, I know you blocked out some time for us to have you on the show, but we really appreciate it. It means a lot to have the original mind and designer of these things on to explain it, because it not only shows the people behind it, but the passion behind it and the thought that goes into every one of these little details. We take that it's important to us because that's how we deal with the seed industry. You know, it means a lot for us to have guys like Don and Dwayne who are the kind of mind behind it. So thank you so much for blocking out the time and being on the show today. It means a lot to us.
Thanks for having me, guys. I enjoyed it, and again, appreciate it very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul. God bless.
Thank you.
We'll be back with the rest of the listener submitted questions right after this message.
Wildlife Farming is the leading e-commerce platform specializing in habitat management equipment. Our mission is to make available the equipment necessary for the development of wildlife habitat and improve conservation for hunting and recreational property. We carry flagship brands like the Genesis Drill and Goliath Roller, as well as the premier brands in planting, mowing, spraying, forestry management, and fencing equipment. Food plot and habitat goals vary. Wildlife Farming is the company that can deliver the equipment to achieve these goals. Equipment is our specialty. Our staff is trained and familiar with all the tractor and skid steer brands to make sure you get the right piece of equipment to get the job done right the first time. At Wildlife Farming, we only sell quality equipment, and we have the support and expertise you need. Please visit wildlifefarming.com for all of your equipment needs.
All right, here's the first question of the day there, Don.
All right, this one comes from Ron Ettinger from Apollo, PA. He says, Don and Terry, can you both weigh in on something a friend said he was doing? Do you think it's a good idea or a waste of time? My buddy took old boots, pants, shirt, hat, and a burlap sack to make a scarecrow of sorts, then put it up in his tree stand to get the deer used to seeing something in the tree shaped as a human. You guys think it helps or hurts? Love the podcast and continue to be a blessing. Thanks for keeping me excited for the season throughout the year. Ron, you know, I've heard of other people doing this, and I don't get it because, you know, I want to be totally hidden. I mean, I think the last thing that you want is a deer to be looking up in a tree, especially a mature buck, and see a human form, silhouette or whatever. I think that your buddy would be way better off to hide his tree stand a little better. I don't know if it means putting it in a different tree and have branches around him, or higher in that same tree, or what. But I just don't think, I think the idea sounds good in theory, but in reality, I don't think it's going to work near as good as your buddy thinks. He'd be way better off just hiding that tree stand and remaining hidden, instead of trying to get deer used to that human form in his stand.
I think that if we're really calling what we need to call here, that you only get so many chances at a mature buck. And once he doesn't like something, your chances go drastically down, right? So, I mean, if he doesn't like a Scarecrow in there, he's sure not going to get used to it. I mean, mature bucks are just different. I mean, it might work for 3-year-olds or something in a campground or something, but I just don't think that when we're focusing on mature bucks, that the kind of little gimmick stuff is going to work. You just don't get that many shots at them, you know?
You make up a great point, Terry, because that Scarecrow could ruin your opportunity to mature buck before the hunting season ever starts. And then you got to go in, you got to put that thing up, and you've got that clothing with human scent on it, and whatever you stuff in that burlap bag has probably got human scent on it. I just think there's lots of negatives here, the human intrusion being one of them.
Well, I'm going to jump in here and make a quick announcement as it relates to the Chasing Giants TV YouTube channel. And I don't want to make this very long, but it's exciting news. And if you haven't heard it, we are going to start doing a weekly prayer video. And what that means is every Sunday at about 7 o'clock Eastern time, I have a group of friends that are going to be on a rotation. And every Sunday, one of them is going to post a prayer for the outdoor community, all of the families, and our country. This platform of Chasing Giants podcast, the platform of the new YouTube channel, Higgins Outdoors, Real World, we understand and we've lived the experience that when we live selfishly, things might be successful, but they just seem hard. They seem slow. They get stagnant. When you turn everything over to God, it makes just so many things a whole lot easier. And we're going to do the same thing with this platform. So if you go over to the Chasing Giants TV YouTube channel, you're going to be able to watch these videos every week. So we're not going to have everybody pray every week. We're going to have one guy lead a prayer that will be on a video posted at 7 o'clock every Sunday. And I just want to go through the names of the people that's doing it. You guys listen to Don and I enough. But we're going to have the prodigy Wes Delks. We're going to have a guy by the name of Devin Hurley, who's a minister at the Antioch Church of Christ. If you guys do remember, he did a segment last Christmas where he read the Christmas story at the end of one of our podcasts. Really good friend of mine, good deer hunter. We're going to have Wes Stinson, and if that name rings a bell, I've talked about him before. He is a YouTuber that runs the Fall Line Ridge YouTube channel. It's about homesteading. He has a sawmill, does honeybees, firewood, remodeling. Just a super great Christian guy. Great YouTube channel. I've gotten to know him through YouTube and the podcast. Ty Miller from the Small Acre Hunting podcast. Ty's another really good friend, been a supporter of Don and I's for a long time. You talk about a guy that cuts straight to the chase and doesn't mess around. Ty is that kind of guy. And then finally, my good friend Harold Monk, the CEO of Wise Eye. And I've talked about this man and how he is just such a faithful Christian. He's also agreed to do it. So between now and the end of the year, I've created a schedule where each of these guys are going to publish a prayer on Sunday evenings at 7 o'clock. Whether you watch it or not, that's fine, but you're going to know that this platform is trying to put God first, be a good example, trying to encourage all of you to put your priorities in the right place, and we're praying for you. Whether you're on there or not, we're praying for you. So thanks and God bless. Head on over to the Chasing Giants TV YouTube channel. It's different than the Higgins Outdoors. Chasing Giants TV with Terry Peer. That's where this is going to be. Thanks, everybody. We're very blessed to have you all here. Enjoy the rest of the show.
The next one comes from Steve Schieber from Chillicothe, Missouri. He says, "Hi, Don. I've heard you talk often about rope scrapes, but what about creating scrape trees to draw bucks near your stand or blind? Do you advocate for their use? And if so, what materials and design setup do you use? Also, if you do use them, do you advise having a trail cam on them or at least aimed on the tree scrape? This would obviously be near your hunting spot, and I've heard you say cams might be noticed by big bucks who you might only get a picture of once, which might mean they don't come near your stand or blind again. Lastly, would using a cellular camera versus a regular camera versus a cellular one make a difference for you. Thanks for all you and Terry do. Well, Steve, I know what you're talking about. These guys that are planting these, they'll cut a tree down and they'll plant it basically in front of their blind or their stand with the idea that the deer will come and scrape under it and such. And that does work to some degree, but you know, the best idea along these lines that I heard came from Wes Delks. And Wes on his new property is actually planting live shingle oak trees. Shingle oaks hold their leaves in the winter, and bucks really like to scrape under shingle oaks. So, you know, at his food plot locations, Wes is actually buying some bigger burlapped shingle oak trees, and he's planting them out there 20 yards or so in front of his blinds and stands. He's going to leave them, and he's going to basically farm around them in his plots. And as that tree grows, he doesn't have to go back out there and replant a dead tree every year. Let's be honest, if a buck starts rubbing on it, you're going to have to set that thing pretty good, like a fence post, or he's going to pop it right out of the ground. I think Wes's idea is fantastic. In fact, I may implement it in a place or two on the new acreage that I've just acquired that butts up to my main farm. So I don't have experience with these planted branches, I'll call them. I just didn't see it worth the human intrusion. The buck's going to be there anyway. That scrape is a good way to get them to stop right there in shooting range. Your question about putting a camera on it, I think there's probably better places to get a buck's picture than right in front of your stand. I think that camera is just another reason for him to avoid the area. Now, when I say avoid, a lot of times with these cameras, I've noticed it on my farm, the places that I can observe as I'm sitting in a stand, maybe 100 yards, 200 yards away. I see these mature bucks, you know, they'll walk around a camera. They don't just totally vacate the whole area. They just don't get right in front of that camera where they're looking into it. I've got one particular place on my farm where I've got a camera on a post, and you guys who have been to my master class will remember this spot. It's the smoky blind, and there is a camera on a post where the deer come out of the cover into the plot. And I've seen bucks go around the back side of that post. Instead of going in front of the camera, they'll walk around the other side of the post and go behind the camera. I've seen that many, many times, but in most situations, I prefer to have my cameras away from my stands. And it just seems to work a whole lot better. You want the least amount of human intrusion or human pressure of any kind right there at your stand site. So that's another big plug for Wes's idea of going out there, planting that tree one time, being done with it. Every year it's there.
I'm trying something this year because it's one of the questions we get asked a lot when we're doing land consulting jobs, and I want to be able to really talk factual with people versus just ideas. So think about your smoky blind. That's a very similar setup. Actually, that smoky blind, what gave me the idea of the new hallway that I put in on my farm this year. And the 360 blind, I actually reached through the window and mounted a cell cam in between the windows pointing down at the hallway. So like where your smoky blind is. Now, the thing that I'm not sure of is, being that high, is the motion detection going to work the same way as if it was in a normal orientation? But the theory there, even though it is tied next to it, it's up in the air a little bit more, and the intrusion completely goes away in the hallway, because I can drill a little hole in the side of the blind down at the bottom, run my external battery, and keep a battery right there on the floor of the inside of the blind out of the weather. When it needs to be recharged, I can just swap it out from the inside of the blind the same way I would when I'm hunting, and kind of stay out of the middle of it. Don't have these deer going up sniffing the camera anymore. So I'll keep everybody posted on it. I don't know that it's going to work. I don't know how many pictures I'm going to miss because of the angle, but I'm going to give it a try just to try to give some advice and feedback that's a little bit more quantified and tested to our consulting clients.
Good deal. We like to pass along firsthand information here, not things that we've read or seen other people do. And that'll be a good experiment. I look forward to hearing what happens there, Terry. Okay, next question comes from Grant Nicodemus from Urbana, Ohio. Did a consulting visit to Grant's property last winter. So he says, Don and Terry, first, thanks for the great podcast and keeping the faith. Don, you talk about planting soft mass trees, apples, pears, etc., for another food source on our properties. Obviously, it takes a few years for the trees to start producing quantities of fruit. In the meantime, would you recommend getting apples and putting them out in a pile? I have a local orchard where I can get 40 to 50 bushels of apples every week. In the past, I have put them out in a pile and the deer love them. Till my trees start producing, is this a good thing or not? I put them out during the day, and so human intrusion is low as I'm on a quad. As soon as I leave, the cameras start sending me pictures, so I don't think it's putting pressure on them. What are your thoughts on apple piles? Well, Grant, I've got that property in Ohio as well. If you got 40 or 50 bushels of apples, why don't you take about half of those and go put them on my property? It's a couple hours from you, so I guess that's probably not going to happen. But I think it's a great idea. Anything that you can do to set your property apart from surrounding properties, absolutely do it. It's no different than a feeder and using a feeder with a different kind of feed than what your neighbors around you are using, one that's more attractive to the deer. And that helps set your property apart. These apple piles help set your property apart. And if you're not going into your sanctuary to do this, maybe right at the edge of the sanctuary or near a stand location or whatever it is that you're doing, I think it's a great thing. It's not a negative whatsoever. I'd keep doing it. And like I said, if you got extra apples, I know a place you can get rid of them.
A few years ago, we went and picked a bunch of apples and put them in 5-gallon buckets and went and poured them out, and the deer just hammered them. So we're like, this is the real deal. And we were getting inventory in the middle of the summer, it was July, early August. And so the apples had just started falling, and we went and spent hours and hours and hours. And I don't even know how many apples we had. And we backed the truck up and dumped them all out. And the first picture on that card was a coyote coming up eating the apples, and then another coyote. And there ended up being, I think, 6 coyotes on the pile, and all of them were peeing on it. They'd hike their leg up and pee on it, and the deer didn't hit it so well after that. So I just remember putting in all those hours and then having coyotes pee all over it, and the deer didn't eat them too much. But
well, I guess maybe there's a negative I didn't think about.
All right, let's just start that over if you don't care.
Okay.
Well, this week I have Don Bailey on the phone. And Don, this week you have a little bit different message for us. You got an invite for everybody that's local, right?
Yes, correct. The DeCoin State Fair is going on. We at BioFarm have been sponsors of the fair for 15, 16 years. We sponsor the 4-H kids that are showing livestock. We pass out 12 or 1,300 T-shirts to all the participants that are showing livestock, and we also supply show money for the dairy, hogs, and beef cattle. Like I said, we've been doing it for 15 some years, and it's kind of the old school fair, Terry. It's more ag related,
right,
and country related than like the Springfield Fair.
Right.
So I'd like to invite everybody to come down and look us up and say hello.
Well, the thing that I love about this is not only are you guys always giving back to the community, but as a parent, these activities that these youngsters are participating in with livestock is really teaching them how to work. There's a lot of care and work that goes into showing livestock, and quite honestly, I think we need a little bit more of it in these younger generations. So it's a great tool to educate and teach kids work ethic and about animals and about self-sufficiency. who knows where this world is going to be, and teaching youngsters how to take care of themselves and raise animals. It's just such a great thing. I know I participated in it. Don participated in it when he was younger also. And I think it's really cool that BioFarm gets so involved with this and participates and supports these kids as much as you do.
Well, we enjoy doing it, obviously, and it's a good bit of money, but we can't think of a better way to help with the money and help with the time, Terry. It's just well worth it to us.
Right. So this podcast is going to release on August 27th. And the show and fair will be going on at that time, but it goes through the week, and I believe you're all going to be showing the following holiday weekend. Is that right?
Yes, both Saturdays and Sundays the next coming weeks. Yes.
All right. So if you're in the area or you're driving through, it's a great opportunity to stop, not only support kids, but have a good time. And I think I like the idea of getting back to our country roots a little bit, though. I think that sounds neat.
I think we all need to do more of that, Terry. I agree.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks for being on the show. Go out and visit the State Fair in Illinois, and we'll be back with the next segment of the podcast.
Thank you, Terry. Have a good day.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Anything else you want on there?
Nope. I just.
All right, the next one comes from Dakota Ron from Auburn, Indiana. He says, hello, Don and Terry. Appreciate your podcast and Real World Wildlife Products Company. Great products sold and ran on Christian values. But one question I have is you both are Christians and read the same Bible I read. In that book, it states work 6 days a week and the seventh rest and keep holy. So what's your opinion on the statement if you hunt and work on Sundays? Do you feel it's okay, and it's okay to teach my kids it's okay, but then I'd be going against the book, and then would I be truly putting God before hunting like we claim we do? Thanks from a fellow curious Christian. Well, Dakota, your question on hunting on Sundays, hunting is not work to me, so you're supposed to rest on Sunday. I promise you, I can rest sitting in my deer stand or deer blind every bit as much as I can sitting on a couch at home. And I personally don't see anything wrong with it whatsoever. I've got a lot of questions since starting this podcast from fellow Christians of various denominations or faiths, however you want to put it, questioning different things. And folks, I'm not the religious authority. I think without question, God knows our hearts. And when we start trying to nitpick at what other people are doing, I don't think that that's pleasing to God at all. We need to worry about ourselves. And for me personally, a person hunting on Sunday, that's not work. I mean, I don't think God has a problem with me sitting back in a big oak tree and relaxing on Sunday afternoon. On a deer hunt. Now, I do want to say, though, that if hunting on Sunday interferes with you going to church, that can be an issue. And I'm not saying it is an issue. I'm saying it can be an issue. That's not for me to judge other people. God commands me to love other people, not to judge other people. So I'm not going to pass judgment on anybody. I will say that I recognize with my platform and that God has given me that I've got a lot of eyes on me, and a lot of those are Christian eyes or people that are looking to maybe bash Christians. So I make it a point not to miss church to go hunting. In fact, I don't think that since I became a Christian and started going to church, I can't remember a single time where I skipped church to go deer hunting, even in the heat of the rut. Now, sometimes I'll run out there and I'll hunt for a couple hours, first couple hours of daylight before church, and then I'm back home and I'm in church when church is open. That's me. I'm not telling you that that's what you should do. Again, God knows each of our hearts, and I think when we start nitpicking other people's beliefs, That's not what God put us here for. He put us here to love one another. He'll do the judging, not me. And, I had a call from one guy from Tennessee that it didn't really, I mean, when he first called, I was taken aback a little bit, and I didn't really know what to say. And I'm kind of getting off topic here a little bit, but it was about my faith and some things that I'd said on the podcast. And after we'd hung up the phone, I'm driving down the road when he called, and I'm driving down the road thinking about it. Boy, the more I thought about this guy, the more fired up I got, because this guy was actually passing judgment on me, and that's not his place. It's not my place to be passing judgment on anybody else either. So I think as Christians, we need to worry about ourselves. We need to love others. That doesn't mean we need to accept sin, but we need to love the sinner, not the sin. And if we just need to keep that in mind. But I don't see a thing wrong with hunting on Sundays as long as it's not affecting your walk.
Okay.
I can't believe you don't have anything to add to this, Terry.
I think that was the perfect answer. I think neither one of us are spiritual experts or doctrinal experts, and it doesn't matter if we were. There'd be somebody that would disagree with us. I think if we consider where we're at, where we want to be, and focus on that versus what somebody else is doing when it comes to your faith, I think that's where the important thing is. I think you had the perfect answer. So.
Okay, the next one comes from Damon Marling from Paris Crossing, Indiana. He says, "Hi, Don and Terry. Thanks for the podcast and sharing your faith. Questions. We've all learned from our experiences or from listening or talking to others." Damon lists 3 questions here, and I think I'll just answer them as I go, or I'm going to forget the first one by the time I get to the end. He says, "What do you think would be the percentage of learning on your own versus others? Things I've learned from others." I would say it's probably, I'm going to say it's probably around 50-50. There's nothing like experience. Experience is the best teacher, but a lot of times I've taken something maybe I've learned from others and I've applied it, and I've increased my knowledge about that particular topic. It might have started with somebody else, but I would say, and then there's a lot of things I just learned on my own by doing it wrong the first time, or maybe several times, and finally figuring it out. So I'm going to just say about 50-50. Says, "Have you ever learned anything from other consultants in recent years, like Grant Woods, Tony LaPratt, Jeff Sturgis? I was thinking that your new thoughts on planting cover crops and not working the soil might have come from Grant Woods." Well, to be honest, I don't follow any of those guys and their teaching, so it's not meant as a insult to any of those guys, but I really can't say that I've learned anything from them. Now, there's been times where, like Tony LaPratt has been, I've been at, we had the big debate, and I maybe heard him say something that got my wheels turning, and it got me to thinking of situations that I've experienced, and it helped me learn that way. But to say that, yeah, I listened to Grant Woods about regenerative farming and that got me on the ball, that didn't happen at all. I don't think I've ever watched a Grant Woods video. Nothing against him at all. I think he's a great Christian man, and he's brought a lot to the industry. I just can't say that I've watched those guys and learned from them. And the thing of it is, this whole, internet, YouTube video thing is fairly new. And when I was really in my learning stages, decades earlier, that wasn't available. I can tell you that if I was in my 20s and 30s, and today, I would probably spend every waking moment that I wasn't doing something else, every free moment on the internet watching these videos, because there's just so much information out there today. The key is trying to filter through it. We've said this many times, filter through the good and the bad. And I encourage people all the time, take a look at your source and what your source of that information has accomplished. It's one thing to listen to a guy who's killed numerous mature bucks throwing out advice, and there's some good ones. You got Bill Winke out there, you got Dan Infalt. Those 2 guys right there are super, super whitetail hunters. And then you've got a lot of people out there that are just regurgitating stuff that they maybe read or watched on another video, and they've never killed a buck on it. And I'll throw you out an example is rope scrapes. Today you can go online and there's probably 20 videos on rope scrapes. Most of the guys that are doing that have never ever killed a buck over a rope scrape, and really cannot show you pictures of multiple mature bucks on their rope scrapes. You see them out there in tennis shoes kicking the dirt back to make the scrape, and grabbing the rope with their bare hands and everything else as they make these scrapes. That's just one example. That rope scrape is a good thing, but a lot of the information is coming from people that really have never applied it correctly. So be careful of your sources, where you take your information. And again, I'm not blasting any of the three gentlemen that were mentioned as putting out bad information, but it is what it is. And there was a third question there, Terry. Have you ever learned anything from an amateur hunter? Maybe he didn't realize he was teaching you, but that was the result of the conversation, like not leaving as much scent, checking trail cams when it's dry out versus wet. Thanks again. Hope to see you soon, Damon. I've learned an absolute ton from amateur hunters. In every consulting season, as I visit with consulting clients on their properties, every year I pick up ideas from my clients. And sometimes it just gets my mind working in a different direction than what they're actually doing on their property. I may see them doing something, and that triggers me to think, if they would just do what they're doing, but do it a little bit different, I think it would work even better. But yeah, there's been a lot of good ideas that have come from amateur hunters, if you want to call them that, consulting clients, just people's posts on social media, private messages to me, conversations I might have one-on-one with somebody. But yeah, I've taken a lot of good ideas from other hunters.
Okay.
The last one comes from Ben from Minerva, Ohio. He says, "Dear Don and Terry, one of the most common things I hear come up in regards to property and hunting is access. Everyone talks about how good access is key, but no one ever describes what good access actually is or looks like. Now I have all these ideas in my head, but want to hear what the experts say. Bear in mind, I'm a private access guy. Thanks for all you guys do." Before I give my answer, I want to stress this last sentence. Bear in mind, I'm a private access guy. And I think maybe, Ben, you misunderstand the term access. Maybe because by reading that last line, it sounds like you hunt private property. So you have access to private properties, where some people only have access to public land. And a lot of times when we're talking about access, we're talking about whatever property you're hunting, how do you enter onto that property? So in other words, if you've got a property and you park out along the road and your food plots are way at the back of the property and you got bedding cover up at the front and you've got to walk through that bedding cover to get to your food plot at the back, we would call that poor access, because you're going to put too much disturbance on the property before you ever get to your hunting location. That when we talk about poor access, that's what we mean. How you're entering that property, and can you do so without alerting the deer that you are there? A lot of hunts get ruined before the hunt ever starts by poor access. The person accessing their stand or their blind just disturbs too much to get there. And that's what we mean by access. I hope that draws a little clearer picture for you. That's about the best I can do with words only. I would need an aerial photo or something to go into that a little deeper, but I think that should clear things up quite a bit.
I did a video the other day on Chasing Giants TV about accessing the new stands that I have in, and to oversimplify it is we're always on the downwind side of bedding with the wind blowing out of the bedding across the deer's nose, so the deer thinks that it has the wind that it needs to be there. to us and then blowing out our access or out over some piece of topography, whether it's water, open cropland, or something, to where the deer will not be. So out of bedding across the deer's nose, through us, into a safe place. So I don't know if that's oversimplifying it or not, but I had a couple questions actually on the same thing. And yeah, it's when you start understanding a mature buck, what he wants from a wind perspective and how he's using downwind sides of either food or bedding, it starts clicking a whole lot more.
Yep.
All right.
So that kind of wraps up the questions for this week. What do you got planned for the rest of the week, Terry?
I have to go to a wedding in Northeast Ohio on Saturday night. So it's my wife's birthday on Friday. So we're going out to dinner Friday night and then going up to Northern Ohio on Saturday. And then I have our good friend Brandon Epperson, I believe, is going to bring over some round bales for me. And in an area that I want to kind of, let's just say, divert deer about 15, 20 yards to get them in, I'm going to put a row of round bales, 8 round bales from a corner post, just so when they walk, they're within chip shot range versus having a 38-yard shot. I'm going to have a 21-yard shot. So I just need to take some round bales and put them in a row, and then I'm ready for deer season to start opening first Saturday of September.
That'll be here before we know it. What do you got, about 2 weeks left? Or?
Not even. Week and a half.
Yeah.
A week from Saturday, I'll be in a tree.
I know a couple of turkey hunters from Illinois that are hoping you have success early.
Yeah, they stay in constant contact. So
Yeah.
as long as he doesn't get a fever blister in his kissing booth, then he'd probably be healthy enough to come and and turkey hunt this fall. If
he gets any takers at his kissing booth at this event, I might have to disown the guy.
Oh, we love you, Al. The only person that's probably happy that we're picking on Al is Ray and Aiden. So we're not picking on them this week.
We left them alone this week, but Al's been a good friend of mine. I mean, I've known him for over 40 years now, and I said it many times. He saved me at least a decade on the learning curve when it comes to hunting mature bucks. And he did that the first summer that we met. So, and besides the hunting knowledge I've gained from Al, just the friendship, the guy's got a heart of gold. I appreciate him and Joey both. I've met both of them at my old job, and just had lunch with them here the other day. They took me out for my birthday, but I always say, one of the best things that deer hunting ever did for me is the people that it brought me in contact with, the friends I've made through deer hunting. And, Joe and Al are perfect examples of that.
I have an idea for you as we close the podcast for you to check into that I would like you to at least explore. And it's going to get into probably some copyright things that we have to investigate. But the articles that Al wrote back in the day for the hunting publications are masterpieces. And I don't think that we can just scan them and upload them somewhere because of probably copyright of those publications. But you ought to do a series on the Whitetail Master Academy where you have him just come on the camera and talk about the article and go through it. That is like teaching. He gave me an envelope a couple years ago that had copies of them, and I keep them in my gun safe. It is like teaching a kid fundamental basketball or baseball. I mean, it's so well written, and like you said, it could shave years off of people's. And when we're cutting through your comment earlier about what's good information and bad information, I wish that there was a way we could recirculate that. So if we're allowed to just post that, I think that would be awesome. If we can't, maybe we should have Al on to do some segments on Whitetail Master Academy about some of these articles. I think it would be a fantastic section for the website.
That's a great idea. And, mentioning Al in his writing, he's got an article in the first issue of Whitetail Life that's coming out. I've submitted all the articles to the publisher. They're laying out the artwork right now, and that'll soon be going to press. It'll be out about the 1st of October. But one of the things that I wanted to do as soon as I accepted the role as editor is I got a hold of Al, and I dug him out of retirement. I had to pull and pry just a little bit, but I think he's glad he's done it now that he got that first article out. And I'm trying to get him to contribute on a fairly regular basis to the magazine, because even though he doesn't hunt deer today, he was so instrumental in, my development as a deer hunter, and the knowledge is still there. I can carry on a deer hunting conversation with Al the same as I could the biggest names in this industry, and he gets it. He knows that big bucks are different. He knows it takes a different approach to consistently kill them. And I wanted to tap into that on the Whitetail Life magazine. So you guys that have subscribed to that, you're in for a treat. There's going to be some things in that magazine that's not being done by other magazines today. If you're interested, just go to whitetaillife.com and you can subscribe right there. But really looking forward to that first issue coming out.
All right. Well, good deal. Good luck with the baby this weekend. Tell everybody we said hello. And we'll be back with you next week on opening weekend of Kentucky archery season.
Well, I hope you've got a good story for us when we check back in next time.
We'll see.
Yep. God bless everyone. Have a great week.
Take care.
Chasing Giants has been brought to you by Osseo Camo, Buy a Farm Real Estate Company, 360 Hunting Blinds, Victory Chevrolet, Real World Wildlife Products, Matthews Archery, Novix Tree Stands, Gingerich Tree Farm, WildlifeFarming.com, Quiet Cat, and Vortex Optics. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode of Chasing Giants.